Armin Arlert spends almost the entire story chasing a dream. Not power, not revenge, not freedom. He seeks understanding. While Aaron stares at the walls and sees a cage, Armin stares beyond them and sees a mystery. He wants to know what's out there, what's beyond the walls, what's beyond the sea, what's beyond everything he's been told. And on the surface, Attack on Titan rewards that dream. The mysteries are solved, the secrets are uncovered, the ocean is reached. Armin gets exactly what he wanted. So why does he seem less certain of the world by the end of the story than he was at the beginning? Most people remember Armin as the optimist, the dreamer, the character who proves that intelligence and empathy can survive even in a cruel world. And that's true. He is the one who believes the world can still be understood, that knowledge leads somewhere meaningful, that truth will eventually resolve confusion. But there's another way to read his arc, because if you follow Armin from beginning to end, a pattern starts to emerge. Every major discovery is supposed to bring clarity. Instead, it seems to make his life harder. And once you notice that pattern, Armin's entire arc starts to look different. Heads up, from here on, the video contains major spoilers for Attack on Titan. And I mean major spoilers. At the beginning of the story, Armin's world is small, terrifying, but simple. Humanity lives inside the walls, Titans are the enemy, survival is good. The people fighting for humanity are heroes, the world is dangerous, but it makes sense. Then the answers begin to arrive. The female Titan isn't a monster. She's Annie. The armored Titan isn't a monster. He's Reiner. The colossal Titan isn't a monster. He's Berthold. And suddenly the enemy has faces, histories, motivations. The conflict becomes harder to understand, not easier. Then comes the basement, the final mystery, the key that will make the world make sense. Instead, it destroys the framework through which the characters understood reality. Humanity wasn't on the verge of extinction. The walls weren't the whole world. The truth doesn't resolve the story, it complicates it. Then comes the ocean, Armin's lifelong dream, the image that represents everything beyond the walls. And when he finally reaches it, something strange happens. The dream does not resolve. It reorients. Because the ocean is not a destination. It is a threshold, a boundary between one world and another. Standing on the shore is the final moment where Armin can still believe that understanding leads to clarity. Beyond it lies Marley. History, politics, collective guilt. A level of complexity that cannot be reduced into simple moral categories. The closer Armin gets to understanding the world, the less simple the world becomes. Maybe Armin's story isn't about knowledge leading to truth. Maybe it's about knowledge creating responsibility. We usually think of knowledge as liberating. Learn enough and the answer appears. Learn enough and uncertainty disappears. But that's not how Armin experiences the world. The more he understands, the more he sees consequences. The more perspectives he gains, the harder simple judgment becomes. Understanding someone does not tell you what to do about them. It only makes the decision harder. And Armin understands everything. His friends, his enemies, Marley, Paradis, even Aaron. And that expanding understanding becomes a burden rather than a release. One of the first moments this becomes visible is when Armin kills another human being. What defines that moment is not violence, it is recognition. Someone must die. And refusing to choose does not remove the outcome. It only removes authorship over it. From that point forward, Armin learns something irreversible. Understanding systems of violence does not protect you from them. It binds you to their consequences. And that binding only deepens as the story continues, because understanding does not stay theoretical. It becomes physical. It becomes scale. In many ways, Armin's tragedy begins not with loss, but with survival. Levi chooses him over Erwin Smith, because Armin represents something worth preserving, like hope, curiosity, the belief that the world can still be approached without cynicism. Erwin represents the opposite, a commander who understands exactly what his victories cost, a man shaped entirely by responsibility. And as the story progresses, Armin is pushed into the same role. He inherits the colossal titan. He inherits Bertholt's memories. He inherits increasing levels of strategic responsibility, and gradually he inherits Irwin's position in practice, if not in name. The qualities that defined him are not destroyed, they are repurposed. Curiosity becomes calculation. Empathy becomes burden recognition. Dreaming becomes decision-making under impossible conditions. Not because he becomes like Irwin, but because understanding the world leaves no alternative role available. And then, at the port of Liberio, Armin's understanding finally becomes irreversible. He transforms into the colossal titan. And for the first time, the dream of the ocean and the reality of destruction occupy the same space. What was once a symbol of discovery becomes the staging ground for annihilation. A single transformation wipes out fleets, soldiers, and civilians alike, and from above it all, Armin looks down at the burning port, not as a conqueror, but as someone witnessing what he has become capable of. This is the corruption of understanding in its most literal form. The boy who dreamed of seeing the world now becomes the force that destroys part of it. Not out of hatred, but out of necessity he understands too well to deny. And yet, even this understanding does not simplify him. In the paths, Armin sits with Zeke Yeager, a man who has abandoned meaning entirely. And instead of arguing grand philosophy, Armin picks up something small, a leaf, a memory, a fragment of childhood, and insists that life is not justified by meaning at all, but by the fact that it is lived, that even in a meaningless world, small moments still matter. This is not optimism, it is reduced hope, not a grand answer, but a survivable one. And it shows something crucial. Armin does not lose empathy. He loses scale. Then comes Aaron and the final conversation in the paths, where understanding no longer allows distance. Armin does not condemn him. He does not excuse him. He does something more unsettling. He accepts involvement. That this was not something done by one man alone, but something produced through shared history, shared fear, shared failure to find another path. Even the line between victim and accomplice begins to blur, and for Armin, that is the final collapse of innocence, not into evil, but into participation. Because innocence was never compatible with the understanding he pursued. This is where Armin's arc becomes easy to misread. We often think he preserves his humanity while others lose theirs, but that framing misses something crucial. Armin does not lose morality, he loses innocence. And innocence was never compatible with the understanding he pursued, because innocence depends on simple categories, good and evil, monsters and humans, right and wrong. Armin's mind dissolves those categories without ever losing empathy, and what replaces them is not clarity, it is responsibility, shared, unavoidable, and never clean. The ocean remains the clearest symbol of this transformation. Once, it represented proof that the world was larger than the walls, a promise that discovery would lead somewhere meaningful, but by the time Armin reaches it, it has become something else entirely, a border, a threshold, the line where curiosity stops being a dream and becomes obligation. Beyond it is a world that cannot be simplified, a world that cannot be resolved, a world that must be navigated rather than understood. And once Armin crosses that threshold, there is no return to the simplicity that came before it. Armin gets exactly what he always wanted. He sees the world. But somewhere beyond the ocean, the boy searching for answers is left behind. And maybe the real question is whether that was worth it. Maybe that's something worth thinking about.